Good morning. In the previous session, what we had done was we discussed about Bapsi Sidhwa's novel, The Ice Candy Man. In this particular session, the second session, New Literature in English, Block Third, we discuss a novel by V.S. Naipaul. Vidyadhar Suraj Prasad Naipaul was born on 17th August 1932. A Trinidad born Nobel Prize winning British writer of Indian heritage, he is known for his cosmic early novels set in Trinidad. His bleaker later novels of the wider world and his autobiographical chronicles of life and travel, Naipaul has published more than 30 books, both of fiction and non fiction, over some 50 years. Naipaul was married to Patricia Ann Hale from 1955 until her death in 1996. His wife served as first reader, editor, and critic of his writing. Naipaul dedicated his A House for Mr. Biswas to her. Naipaul married Nadira Naipaul, a former Pakistani journalist, in 1996. Naipaul's work consists mainly of novels and short stories, but also include some that are documentary. He is to a very high degree a cosmopolitan writer, a fact that he himself considers to stem from his lack of roots. We see a lot of this rootlessness in his novels that we'll be discussing in the coming time. He is unhappy about the cultural and spiritual poverty of Trinidad. He feels alienated from India and in England. He is incapable of relating and to identify with the traditional values of what was once a colonial power. Naipaul's works consist mainly of novels and short stories. We discussed that earlier. This session we concentrate on A House for Mr. Biswas. In his stories and novels, Naipaul transforms actual societies he has known, their rules and subjects, into fictional communities that generate narrators and characters more vivid than their models. Let's say we uh, let's say we talk about Malgudi Days, a fictional a fictional place, fictional characters, something of that sort is done over here. That's what Naipaul does. These protagonists are linked to each other and to their progenitor to pursue truths about themselves and their worlds. A House for Mr. Biswas tells the story of its protagonist, Mr. Biswas, from birth to death. We see an overall progress of a human being from birth to death, and each section dealing with different phases of Mr. Biswas's life. In this particular text, Naipaul has a most subjective approach towards the problem of, let's say, identity crisis than the objective one a reader finds in his travelogues, especially in India. Mr. Biswas seemed fated from his very birth to be a victim of circumstance and harbinger of evil. What is worse, to become unwittingly the cause of disintegration of his family when his father gets drowned in trying to rescue him. Poverty and desperation haunted his life throughout. Discussing about his married life, his inability to truly love Shama stems from his ungrateful attitude towards her home family. But Mr. Biswas refuses to give up his ambition of owning a house and so builds up another during the Port of Spain phase of his life. The failure of less of loss of identity with the loss of the past, the threatening vividness of the future, not to speak of the faceless present, can only is dissipated by the vision of brightly lit house. All that can be abstracted from Mr. Biswas's experience is contained in the meaning that the house metaphor harvests in the course of the novel. We see that how important this little house is for Mr. Biswas. The dreams that he has of this house, to be the master of the house, to be the master of his own life. That is what this house stands for. Now, the novel, through this, Naipaul presents the struggle for identity. Identity, how important it is in a particular human being's life. Uh, Now, this novel, as I said, we discuss the struggle for identity for an Indian in Trinidad, whose agrarian values are challenged by Western cultural influences when he moves to the city. From the very beginning, Mohan Biswas is depicted as a marginalized individual who is constantly on the move to identify his place in the limited world of Trinidad. A vivid portrait of a man who fights to free himself from entanglements of family, customs, and religion. Let's say he doesn't want to be tied down to anything. He doesn't want to be responsible for anything. Responsible, yeah, we can use the word responsible because he doesn't want to be attached to something for long. That's what we see here in this character. A house for Mr. Biswas is also an unforgettable look inside colonial society at the beginning of Great Transition. Now, the character of Mr. Biswas is carved out of alienated experiences. Alienated experiences, let's say, of even V.S. Naipaul. Every character that he has built, or every character, every author or narrator creates, he wants to say something through that character. So we see that over here. As Biswas tries to find his own roots in the social cultural environment that is around him. In the search of his own identity, Mohan Biswas shifts from village to town and from joint family to a nuclear family. But he fails to find his own roots amidst social cultural change. Let me say he loses himself. He doesn't know what he wants exactly. While countless other novelists have depicted identity crisis in established society, Naipaul has depicted a protagonist in a society that is in a pandemonic state, a confused, a chaotic state, and lacking in ideas and creativity. When Mr. Biswas was offered a job, or let me say a responsibility of taking the calf of Dhari to water and was paid a penny a week, Mr. Biswas did it. Well, he loved the calf and did more than to take it to water. He took it for walks near the stream. In the text, we see that there has been a particular instance where it was said that this boy should never go near streams or something, or some weird interpretation has been there. Now I forget the exact text. Now, though he remembered his danger in water, he used to spit and play with the fishes in the water. On one such occasion, he loses the calf when he takes it to the stream to have water and all. That's when he loses the calf, and that's one of the turning points in the story. His father comes to know that the child is missing. He's so mesmerized that he loses track of everything, and then he wanders off, and everybody thinks that he has drowned in the water, and his father jumps into the stream and the father loses his life. That's what, and the boy is scared, and now he doesn't know what to do. Now, after his father dies, his family moves in with his mother's sister Tara. Now, there's another thing. Everybody thinks that it's because of this boy that the father has died. That's maybe a guilt conscience that the little boy has. The family is disintegrated. Of course, the father, the head of the family, is not there, so things have gone wrong. And Mr. Biswas was introduced to schooling and successive odd jobs. He was an assistant to Pandit Jairam, whose cruel treatment was without any match. Biswas was punished for eating 2 bananas. He was to eat all the remaining bananas. Let's say he was something like Oliver Twist. Oliver went and asked for more. There's a particular scene where Oliver goes and says, "Let me have some more soup." Mr. Biswas was punished for having 2 bananas, and the punishment was you need to eat the entire bunch now. Now, while working in a rum shop, he was wrongly accused of stealing $1 and was mercilessly beaten. He is humiliated and beaten by Tara's brother-in-law, Bandat. You see the ill treatment that the boy has faced. You see that he struggles his early life. So maybe that's what shapes him in the future. Let's find out. Now, his inability to truly love Shama stems from his ungrateful attitude, as we have said earlier. He cannot appreciate her connection to them because he loathes the Tulsis. Hence, the shameful lack of respect and verbal abuse towards Shama. It appears that Shama loved Biswas more than Biswas loved Shama. She managed this feat because she understood forgiveness. Biswas did not. Let's say Jesus was asked by one of his followers, "Master, what should I do if my brother sins against me?" Jesus says, "Forgive him." What if he commits a sin twice? Forgive him twice. What if he does it 7 times? Forgive him 7 times. She does the same thing to him. She forgives. But Biswas holds on to a grudge. Now, Mr. Biswas feels severely repressed and cowed down before the matriarchal sway of Mrs. Tulsi and his agent Seth. His predicament in Hanuman House is the microcosm of a slave society. Mr. Biswas doesn't own anything that has much value. He has enough clothes to hang on nail. Well, if you have enough clothes, that just to protect your body, but the requisites of living a good life, roti, kapda, makan, that's what they say. You need all that. And by owning a house, that's what his dream project is all about. He says, if I own a house, he gains personal power. Personal power, something which he never had. Power over something. He couldn't control his destiny. Born with an extra finger on his hand and all that. So this is the first time he wants to have something with him. Something that he never has, which allowed him to feel that he was important. You need power only when you want to feel important. That's what everybody believes. He was able to live by his own rules, support his family and do things for the benefit and not for the benefit of others. This new sound personal power allows Mr. Biswas to live a fulfilling life that he can be proud of. He never has to take orders from anyone anymore. And let me say, he is his own master. With that, I would like to quote John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Satan says, "It's better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven." Something of that sort. Now, this episode with the dollhouse is symbolic of Mr. Biswas' feeling of owning his own house. That feeling has slowly started coming in him. Mr. Biswa's purchase of dollhouse for his daughter Savi manifests his true feelings and aspirations. He wants the best for his family, and this dollhouse is an epitome of this dream house. Every father wants his child to have the best. Every parent wants their child to have everything that they never had, let me say, so that their life becomes comfortable. So this little house, this little doll house becomes the, let me say, the epitome, as I said earlier. This house represents what he wants to own for himself. Now, by owning this house, he is able to challenge the ideas of the feudal society. He manages to overcome and conquer all the obstacles that are placed in front of him by this rigid society by owning the house. Now, if we look at the beginning of the novel, we see that it opens in the house that Mr. Biswas is dying in. It starts, it goes, let me say, from the present to the past. It's like a flashback, taking you back and forth to show you how things had proceeded earlier. So we see Mr. Biswas dying, penniless, sacked journalist has managed to he has managed to build a house that symbolizes his emancipation. He's free from everything now. He has, let me say, freed himself of the burdens. This house, though irretrievably mortgaged, it signals the fulfillment of an aspiration that he had. Futile though it might seem in some sense, but it serves as a revealing metaphor for his hopeless engagement with life, an engagement that has been kept up through despair, and endless and every conceivable deliberate circumstance. It's no surprise that he just cannot believe that he is in a house which he can call on his own. This literally and metaphorically represent his journey's end. One aim in life, one dream in life, that was to have his own house. A house where he is his own master, a house where nobody can order him, a house where he can do anything that he wants to do. No rules apply to him over there. So it presents the end of the journey, and ironically enough, a gaining of hold on life itself. First, when he is to lose it, getting a hold over his life. As we said earlier, as I said earlier, that he wants to control his life. He wants to be his own master. I'm saying the word master again because this is what he wants exactly. Nobody to dominate him. It is in the port of Spain that he comes closest to happiness, working as a journalist for the Sentinel. Now, adding the feather to the cap, or let me say, adding to the joy that he already has working there as a journalist, his son Anand is doing very good in studies, and he is also showing his talent as a good writer. He shows that yes, he can also write well. But as always, all good things have to come to an end. Or let me say, the hero has to face some problems and overcome it. Now, Mr. Biswas's fortune suffers several reversals. It is not until the very end of his life that he is finally able to buy a house. The very, very end. So you can already imagine from the childhood to the last stages of his life, he never had control over anything. He was like a leaf blown away. I'm quoting the West Wind right now. So the experience was much different than what he had imagined. what he had seen, the dream that he had seen at a time when he was young, and now when he has achieved that dream, it was something which he had not thought about. Now his quest for integrity and his ardent struggle to attain accommodation, necessity are the central moments of the novel. He once again allows himself to be trapped. The fatal flaw that this person has. He comes to live in a house belonging to the Tulsis at a reduced rent. Well, he's a poor man, and if you get something cheap, you you can take it, you can buy it. Like he says, I had lot many clothes, but not a house to live in. It is only later, after some time, that he manages to extricate himself from the clutches of the Tulsis when he settles into his own house. Of course, the third one. It is at this house he suffers a mental breakdown during a storm. His refusal to give up his ambition of owning a house, he builds another during the Port of Spain phase of his life. His love for natural human liberty and individuality inspire him to fight against the degenerated Brahmin cultural system represented by the Tulsis in the novel. You see that he is always ready to fight. You see that he wants to go against every rule that wants to tie him down to something. Reason? Well, he is restless. Let me say that. Owning a house may be the symbol of rehabilitation in the case of Mr. Biswas. It's a miniature world, symbolizes the colonial world. His personal battle with the stronghold of the Tulsi household is a quest for existential freedom and the struggle for personality. Now, if we look at the story from every angle, if we read the novel carefully, we see that it's a simple story. There's no big deal about it. There's nothing which could be striking. It's only a man's ambition, or let me say, it's only a man's dream which makes him move forward in life. So the story and the plot is hardly very striking, and you don't see a very big change or reversal out there in the narrative. It's pretty straightforward. There isn't an element of surprise as you would expect, it. Let me say, from Shakespeare, that suddenly things would change. The fatal flaw, and here there is nothing to anticipate. But therein lays the strength of this book. That's the strength. When you don't expect, you don't have to think about anything. Now, Naipaul here tells a story of a simple man from a simple background. But within his characters is a universality of human emotions. You can see the emotions of the man when he fights against everything. Emotions, that's what matters. Now, this man is a loser, for nothing going for him, but within is the human character the strongest. When let me say, when he is stronger when he is weakest. That's something. Now, A House for Mr. Biswas is a work of great comic power, qualified with firm and unsentimental compassion. While there is a lot of humor in the story, the dominant tone of the novel is melodramatic. Or in the beginning, as we see that he is dying there without anything in his pocket, penniless, old, let's say, and then we move on to his past, flashbacks and all that. That's even tragic. I'll use the word tragic. Now, besides focusing on the dark world, the novel introduces brief glimpses of ethnic and social history of the marginalized East Indian community in Trinidad. Now, we can even call this the work of a work of art because it deals with the problem of isolation and frustration and negation of an individual. The protagonist, Biswas, is a tragic figure with misfortune of having ambitions without the means of achieving them. He wanted to build a big house. He wanted to have a house for his own, but never had the means for it. He doesn't have the money for it. This novel is a story that traces his life from his, like I said earlier, his inauspicious birth with an extra finger to his last day in a house, the last day on a house of his own. The pain and darkness of these lines bring out the pathos of the protagonist and in some ways of Naipaul too. Because as culturally uprooted with the acute sense of not being able to fall back upon anything or beyond a borrowed identity in a land to which his forefathers had arrived as laborers, this house or the house of Mr. Biswas symbolizes a dislocated void of native tradition. Displaced post-colonial writers' deepest desire to create an identity. That's what I said earlier. The need for identity. Who am I? Where do I belong to all these things? Now, an identity bereft of his destitute past as well as an individual's ceaseless effort to put up coherence through a structure of brick, stone and cement. I'm talking about the house over here. Now, if we go through, we're coming to the last of the session as well, and the last part of the story. Now, if you see the story carefully, or if you read it carefully, what you see is most of the thing what you've seen is it revolves around the displacement and exile. Even in Naipaul's novel, you can see that his major themes are displacement and exile. His choice of theme refers to his frame of mind. The man's frame of mind can be seen in the works that he does. The often repeated themes in his work like alienation and exile in fact reflects his nomadic feelings for him. Even in the interviews and writings that we've read, it focuses on the loneliness, sense of exile and alienation, the perpetual disturbance, the hollow and in his heart and all those things. Now, through this story, he maybe tries to communicate the traumatic experiences of an immigrant in some other country. That's what he wanted to show in this. Now, the fragmentation, alienation, exile are common terms associated with, you should remember this, these are terms associated with post-colonial literature as well. And it is needless to say, imperialism played a key role in bringing a sense of alienation and disorder to the countries where imperialists have ruled. A sense of alienation. That is, let me say, that is an outcome of the imperialist rule. The themes that we have tried to discuss in this particular session, and how the house is symbolic, how Mr. Biswas feels alienated. All these try and come together to make a whole. And I think in many ways, V.S. Naipaul has been successful in doing that. So we end our session here. Thank you.